We're pleased to welcome David Cay Johnston, who is the author of The Making of Donald Trump. It's a bestseller and also a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. Good to see you, David.
Good to be here.
We're doing this in the spring of 2017, and we are not a program that looks at where the president is today, but we try to make sense of who he is as a man, as a person, as a leader. What did you conclude in this book? Because it's a fascinating book at the core.
Understand that I've known Donald for almost 30 years and have followed him all these years, even the years I wasn't writing about him. The minute I met Donald, I thought he was an absolutely fascinating character. I met him in June of 1988 in Atlantic City. And I said, this guy is going to be a significant force in American culture. He understands how to manipulate the news media. He is full of bravado and nonsense. And he's eager to put himself out there. He's P.T. Barnum. He's our P.T. Barnum. And what astonished me very quickly was finding out from his competitors like Steve Wynn and casino executives and law enforcement people and even some big gamblers, they all said Donald doesn't know anything about the casino business. And I'm like, what? Man owns 2 casinos. How can he not know this? And then I started talking to him about it and began to realize he didn't know anything about the casino business. It was all bluster. And that's what you see in him as president. Donald Trump doesn't know a Sunni from a Shia and why it matters to our policy in the Middle East.
He convinced an awful lot of people to vote for him.
He certainly did. And he's masterful as a salesman about issues where he wants to focus you. And he's very good at getting the news media confused and distracted and covering what he wants. And we often don't see reports pointing out that in a 90-second period, Steve, you can see Donald in videotape say something and then deny he said it.
That's a skill.
Oh, yeah, to pull it off and get away with it. Donald is, in my view, the greatest con artist in the history of the world. He's president.
Is it a character issue?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, Donald is a man who, all of his biographers, the great late Wayne Barrett, who was the first reporter onto him, I was second. Tim O'Brien.
He was with the Village Voice for many years.
Yes. Tim O'Brien, whom I worked with when we were at the New York Times, Gwenda Blair, everybody, Harry Hurt, they will all tell you the same thing. Donald has no moral core. There's no moral core at all. There's no philosophy except the greatness of Donald Trump. And it's astonishing he's gotten as far as he has, and I think it says a lot about the news business.
So let me ask you this. At the core, I appreciate what you're saying. People will decide for themselves. But when Donald Trump sees, we're not trying to be timely at all because this will be repeated many times, when he sees those children, right, that are in Syria and decides, I'm moved by this. Yes, there were previous statements he made that said we should not be involved. He says he's moved emotionally, that anyone would be, and decides to act. How is that a man with no sense of soul? Because
Donald Trump, at the very same time, and my organization, DC Report, reported this, his administration was approving the poisoning of American children. Scientists at the EPA said you should not continue to use a particular insecticide. It makes kids stupid. It's a neurotransmitter that interferes with neurotransmission and reduces kids' IQs. And so Donald Trump...
Excuse me, you're not correlating that to what Assad is doing in Syria.
Absolutely. Let me explain why. Steve, hear me out. There have been numerous chemical attacks by Assad. Assuming Assad did this, we don't actually know that for sure. There have been numerous chemical attacks. And you don't make foreign policy on the basis of your emotional reaction. That's why we spend well over $100 billion a year on a huge intelligence apparatus so that we can make sound judgments. Not that we always do, but you don't do them on emotional reactions. But this administration ignored the science and said we're going to allow this poison that the science says makes children in the womb and small children less intelligent. There's no rhyme nor reason what Donald does.
Why would he do that?
Oh, I don't think Donald...
He has a 10-year-old son.
Yeah,
He cares about his son, and oh, come on. Listen. You roll your eyes at that?
Steve, Donald Trump is a man who has publicly humiliated his wife, who his own children previously, now they're close to him, said they would have nothing to do with him.
His wife now?
No, his first wife and his second wife. And his own children wrote themselves. They would have nothing to do with their father. Then they grew up, and then they went to work for Daddy, who paid a lot better than anybody else, and became very loyal to him. And my point is that Donald Trump is someone to whom everything is a transaction. Everything is a transaction.
Relationships?
Yes, everything is transactional. Everything. And all of his biographers, you could have them all in here as a panel, and they would all tell you, yeah, everything is transactional.
What redeeming quality do you see him?
I admire Donald's incredible brilliance at developing himself as a brand name. I mean, he's the gold champion for making yourself. I make my living off being a brand name. I'm not, I'm a candle. He's the sun over here. He's really been masterful at that. He's focused on it. He's worked on it very hard. When he decides he wants to do something and he's focused on it, he works right at it. And you'll notice he ran this very unconventional campaign. Hillary Clinton couldn't figure out how to respond to it. Well, one of the basics of, love and war is you got to pay attention to how the other side's playing the game.
He played it better.
And he played it very well. He played it very well.
You were on with our good friend Rachel Maddow, and there was a lot made about what was going to be released as it relates to Donald Trump's tax returns. People will decide. We're going to go longer on this, guys. I see the signals. People will decide how much was released and how relevant it was. Right. But you understand more than most about Donald Trump's finances. What should we understand about it?
Well, the 1 year we have that return for 2005 is almost certainly his best year in a number of years. And
best years meaning in terms of
the amount of income that he had, yeah. It almost certainly is his best year. We know that his minimum annual income on average for the prior 10 years was $81.5 million. So he's had a huge income. I don't think anybody would question that Donald has an enormous income. Donald is not a wealth builder, though. Donald's basic business deal, which applies to every deal I've ever looked at except one, the Trump University, is he puts up no money. He gets a fee up front, either from a loan or from a partner, and he then draws cash out as fast as he can. So while other casino owners in Atlantic City were upgrading their properties and their software and doing other things, Donald was just pulling money out of the place as fast as he could. He's not a wealth builder. He's a cash extractor.
How is he sustained, not just the brand, but the businesses, if in fact he's got these flaws, serious flaws?
Yeah, well, first of all,
he came back from the abyss financially from those failures in Atlantic City, the helicopter, the plane, the this, the that.
So what happened in Atlantic City? He got the New Jersey Casino Control Commission to take his side against his bankers, all but 2 of whom were outside of New York State. 70 banks, 2 of them are in the state, the rest aren't. And if the government takes your side against your bankers and says you're going to have to pay back close to $1 billion, you can come back from that. He hires good, talented people. He doesn't keep them around as soon as they stand up to him, but he does hire them. He has a good eye for spotting talent.
Yeah.
And he is intensely aware of how to manipulate politicians to get the favors he wants. When he built his first major project, he turned the derelict Commodore Hotel into the Grand Hyatt at Grand Central Station. 40 years, no property taxes. That's effectively a gift of $400 million of welfare from the tax. I agree it's a smart deal. It's terrible public policy, but it was a smart deal for him, and he got it because Mayor Abe Beame was very close with his father.
Well, let's say this. Fast forward. He will say he uses those skills. He will use those skills to make great deals for America, you say?
What deal has he made so far? I mean, he hasn't had no legislative accomplishments.
As we speak, at the end of April 2017.
Through the first roughly 100 days, Donald had no legislative accomplishments whatsoever. He said things that make no sense because he isn't familiar with politics on the inside. When he didn't get the changes he wanted in the Affordable Care Act, he said, well, I'll make a deal with the Democrats. And I'm the Easter Bunny. It's just not going to happen.
So, tell me how by the way, you've interviewed him face to face?
Oh, yeah, many times.
Many times.
I tried to give him tax advice once, and he couldn't follow my advice.
Yeah, I read that in there. He likes you?
No, Donald only likes those journalists who print what he says and don't do what good journalists do.
Do you think he follows?
Check the record.
Sorry for interrupting. Do you think he follows what you say about him?
At least some, because of some of the comments he's made publicly, yes.
Yes. So, how about this? How do you think this is going to play out with him in terms of his, not just persona, but how I'm a student of leadership. I'm a student of how people evolve as leaders and what they learn. Could you see him learning from the mistakes that all presidents make, all leaders make, and you know what, making the adjustments?
Steve, Donald wants to be the greatest president in history. Right? He wants to be the fifth person in stone up there at Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
But he doesn't have the management skill and the political knowledge to pull it off.
Does he have the emotional intelligence, as Daniel Goleman likes to say?
Yeah, he certainly has some skills. I don't know if they're emotional intelligence in identifying weak points with other people and how to get them to go where he wants them to go. That's why.
Is he introspective?
No. No, Donald is a life unexamined. He's absolutely a life unexamined.
Okay. So you're saying this is it?
I don't think this is likely to get much better. And by the way, don't forget that Donald has not done the work. Out of 700 important federal appointments, he's made about 100
as we speak
at the end of April. There are federal agencies that don't have any politicals, as they're called, who make the policy decisions. We don't have ambassadors in almost every country in the world. We don't have U.S. attorneys because
where's
he
the
fired
silver
them all.
lining? I'm not letting you out of here without the silver lining. Where is it?
I have a hard time. The silver lining is it may be that first with the Tea Party movement and now with the resistance movement, that we are undergoing an awakening of our democracy. For too long, since Watergate particularly, people have said, I don't need to do with politics. And people are now recognizing they need to be involved in politics. I have another book coming out about Donald Trump at the end of the year. And then my next book that I've delayed is I've written an entirely new federal tax code. You don't have to file a tax return in almost all cases. It'll be simple, efficient. It'll be less than 100 pages long, not the 6,500 pages of the current federal tax code.
David, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
Always looking for the silver lining. Check you out next time. Thank you.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by Investors Bank, New Jersey Resources, MD Advantage Insurance Company of New Jersey, New Jersey Sharing Network, Fedway Associates, the New Jersey Re-Entry Corporation, and by Choose New Jersey, transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.